I think just to your point on intersectionality, we've had some, and slightly linking it back to the storytelling as well, we've had some real powerful moments over the last sort of 12 months around some stories that people have been brave enough to come forward and share around religion, sexuality, and just those things that actually none of us are just one thing. We're all so many different elements, and I think that's one thing that we've really pushed is how do we sort of celebrate that, and and through that power of storytelling, and it's shifting now as well in terms of we very good at putting on an event at Heathrow. We love we love an International Women's Day event. We love a Pride event. We love all of that. But actually, what we're also now starting to see is the natural progression, I think, into that space where our networks and our resource groups are really starting to influence our policies, our processes, and our ways of working.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the All Inclusive podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by Adam Sunderland, Head of Equity, Diversity and Inclusion at Heathrow. During the episode, we discussed the key steps Adam's taken to attract a more diverse workforce, increase awareness and understanding around DEI issues among airport staff, and engage employees who may be sceptical or resistant to DEI initiatives. Adam also shares a successful DEI initiative he's implemented, as well as the strategies he's found to be most effective in fostering a more inclusive and equitable environment. As always, before jumping into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell, and follow on your favourite podcast platform so that you never miss an episode. That being said, let's jump in. Hi, Adam.
Hi, Natasha. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Very well indeed.
Oh, I'm so excited for this conversation. I'm glad I'm speaking to a fellow UK person. I've had I've had quite a few people from across the pond speaking to, which has been fantastic. And I'm not going to say it hasn't, but it's always nice to meet a fellow UK.
Yes, definitely. Well, I'm glad I can oblige today and bring you home.
So for our listeners out there, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. Happy to. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. It's an absolute honour. So I'm Heathrow's Head of Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. I've been at the airport 5.5 years now. And previous to that, I worked in the transport sector. So I always joke that I kind of swap trains for planes. I do think planes are slightly a bit more exciting. And I think the airport comes with a real fantastic buzz. I grew up in the north, so I'm a northerner. Made the move down south to London about 15 years ago now, but still very much kind of roots back in the north. And I guess that's where a bit of my journey sort of starts, really. I grew up in the north as a gay man. So coming out and things, kind of feeling quite excluded at school, and feeling like I never really sort of fitted in, or never really found my group. Don't get me wrong, I had amazing friends. I had an amazing supportive family who kind of knew I was gay even before I did. It's that kind of normal story, I think, with a lot of families. And I feel very lucky and privileged to have kind of been in that position. But what that did do is it really got me thinking about feeling different and kind of recognizing where did I fit in the world. And it probably wasn't until I kind of came to the big smoke of London and kind of found myself and kind of really became sort of true to who I was. And yeah, really sort of that's where I was sort of drawn to HR, I guess, then as a career. And that's been my career, really. So HR professional, various roles through my time, HR business partnering, which I guess comes with a real kind of variety and difference in terms of everything you get involved with. And one of the big things I got involved with was equality and diversity. And soon became that was something that kind of became a real passion of mine, a real kind of something that I could feel we could really make a difference, which kind of really linked back to, I think, that kind of being at school and feeling a bit different, and how can I make things better for everybody. And I think that's one of my sort of values is how do I want to make sure I leave the world a better place for everybody? And I think through the work I now do, I can do that. So soon became really involved with networks. Got involved with various roles across different networks. But I guess the real sort of privilege came when I was the chair of the LGBTQ plus network here at Heathrow. I did that role for 2 years. I was supported by an amazing team of people. And I guess, just having that kind of honor really to kind of run a network. It was hard work because you're doing it on top of a busy day job, but actually that then gave me that real fire and passion to make ED&I a real part of what I did. And so when the opportunity came up about 18 months ago now to become the head of ED&I here at Heathrow, I kind of jumped at the chance, and it sort of felt like a real I guess dream opportunity to come along. And I'm really passionate about this industry. I think it's a fantastic, exciting place to work, and to have the kind of armband, if you like, to run the ED&I agenda here, I think is so fantastic. And I'm supported by a wonderful team. I've got 3 direct reports, and even that, I feel really lucky to have an ED&I team, because I recognize that not everybody has that. Sometimes we've, a lot of people in our profession are doing this completely on their own, and so we're in a really lucky position. But I very much love coming to work every day.
Oh, lovely. That's so good to hear. And I think, aviation historically has been a very much of a not very diverse industry. So I'm interested to hear from you. What are the key steps that you've taken to really attract that more diverse talent?
Yeah, and I think it comes a lot down to I think 4 areas for me. So I think the first one is around our community. So for those of you that don't know where Heathrow is, I'll paint a bit of a picture. We're West London, so London, and actually the area that we're in, it's very diverse. And so actually, how do we make that an appealing organisation to come and work for? Because you have an employer on your doorstep ultimately, and we know that our kind of community is really diverse. So getting out into that community, promoting Heathrow as a fantastic place to come and work. And I think a lot of people that work at the airport come from our community, and we know that we've been able to really draw upon that, and our diversity, certainly in our front line roles, is really strong. And actually, that's where we see that growth, and we've seen that shift. So we get out into the community, we go and talk to local schools, local communities, and we give a lot back to our community. And I think that's a real driver in helping to promote the industry and promote the airport. But then that comes with careers. So I think that's the kind of next strand, is really making that as a really attractive place to come and work and have your career. And that goes beyond more than just a great recruitment campaign. And so we've gone out and we've done some fantastic recruitment campaigns with great diversity in them, and great inspiring content. But equally for me, then it's got to come back to, well, what's it actually like to work here? So around creating that culture, because for me, we can push out and we can get the right demographic and we can get that diverse workforce, but if they then come and work here and the culture isn't quite right, or the processes aren't quite right, or the ways of working and the general kind of practices aren't diverse, then everybody's just going to leave anyway. So I think it's then, how do we engage and educate people, are my kind of 2 final pieces. And I think it's really about how do we engage and get people to tell their stories. I think the key thing for me through all of this is the power of storytelling and the narrative. I think, if we've got colleagues who are willing to come forward and share their stories around how fantastic an organisation it is, and they can be a bit of a role model, then I think that it can be really, really powerful. And then the education piece, I think, understanding and helping to build that capability around why this is important, and what the work that we are doing, but equally education from telling people about transition at work and menopause and all of those things, I think is so critical, because it again shows that we are here to really make that difference, and we're not just doing a great campaign. We've got the real core elements internally when you get here as well.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And I'm a total advocate for storytelling as well. I think it's so important. And I think it's a key element, I believe, in growing and increasing that understanding of what EDI actually is. So I'm interested to hear from you if there's anything in particular that you found that was really effective in addition to storytelling, to really bring that awareness and understanding amongst all of the staff that you have got at the airport.
Mm. So I think it's listening as well. So I think it's a great kind of that people go out and talk, but actually let's go and listen to colleagues as well. So let's really get in and amongst our operational colleagues. 70% of our workforce pretty much are frontline colleagues. So they're either doing the security lanes, they're out on the airfield. So they're not desk-based, they're not easy to contact. They don't sit and do emails all day long or don't sit at a desk all day long. They're out doing operational roles, making our airport run. So when we've got the opportunity, and we do that a lot through roadshows and through kind of briefings and things like that, where we can, I think listening to what they're saying and really kind of getting under that, and then helping to build our action plans based on what we're hearing. And I'm really proud that our strategy is based on that. So colleague voice has a big part to play in our strategy, and a lot of what we are trying to achieve is what we've listened to colleagues saying. So I think, yes, it's great that we can tell those stories and we can go out and promote those role models, but equally we've got to get in amongst them. Certainly when you've got that big operational workforce, you've really got to listen to them, because they're the ones that, they're your future leaders coming through the organization. They're the most vocal, they're the ones that are going to, communicate with each other and really push that out. But equally, they're the ones that need to understand sometimes a bit more about this, because we don't connect with them as often, and we can't just send an email or a blog or put a story on our kind of internal intranet. But so it's about that real kind of getting out, connecting with people and really listening, I think, to our colleagues. And we've got our 4 diversity networks as well. So we've, the kind of standard ones, we've got our disability network, our gender network, our ethnicity and culture, and then our LGBTQ plus network. And we are at the moment setting up our first parent and carer network as well. So we're expanding our network. And again, that's a really great example of, we've heard a lot from colleagues recently about, I'm a parent, I'm struggling with, just general life as a parent. I'm struggling because my child needs some additional support. My child is coming out. And what we started to hear a lot about actually was it was parents that were coming to our networks going, can you help me? Or, can I need some advice? Or I want to come and listen to that transition at work webinar that you're delivering, because my child has just told me that they want to transition. And so I think that parent and carer network was the natural next step for us as an organization. So I think that brings to life just a bit of an example, hopefully, that, we've really listened and we've now acted upon that, and we're in the process of setting that new network up. And I think it's I think it's going to be a really popular one.
It's great to hear that you have taken on board what you've been you're really listening to your staff and what they're saying, and are putting kind of your words to action, really. And also what I find interesting in what you said is that it's not a case of you've just set all of these groups up, because I do find that there's a lot of organizations out there that they are aware of that employee resource groups is a good thing to have, and it's an essential part in being able to create that inclusive environment for your employees. But actually, you need to kind of make sure that you're going at the right pace. Do you know what I mean? It's one thing, yes, you need those groups, but you need to kind of set them up according to what your actual demographic is, what your staff are actually saying. And it does definitely sound as though that's kind of what you've done. You've started off with some key groups in the first instance, and then listened a little bit more, and are now setting up the parent and carer group, which is from experience. I think it's definitely, me personally, I find that those groups are extremely helpful for me, and it goes towards the intersectionality as well element of
so powerful.
DEI, because it's not a case of I'm a woman of colour, and so I belong to a lot of the underrepresented groups, ERG, so kind of black women empowered, black women in leadership. I go to those groups, but I'm also a mum. Do you know, and also I've got responsibilities for my grandparents, so I can sometimes take on that carer responsibility. So there's a number of different things that layers to me and to many people. So I think it's really important that you've got enough groups out there that you feel that you're able to touch, not just the one, but quite a few different ones actually.
And I think, just to your point on intersectionality, we've had some, and slightly linking it back to the storytelling as well, we've had some real powerful moments over the last sort of 12 months around some stories that people have been brave enough to come forward and share around religion, sexuality, and just those things that actually none of us are just one thing. We're all so many different elements, and I think that's one thing that we've really pushed is how do we sort of celebrate that, and and through that power of storytelling, and it's shifting now as well in terms of we very good at putting on an event at Heathrow. We love we love an International Women's Day event. We love a Pride event. We love all of that. But actually, what we're also now starting to see is the natural progression, I think, into that space where our networks and our resource groups are really starting to influence our policies, our processes, and our ways of working, and really bringing that colleague voice in and saying, right, well, actually, this is what people are saying. This is what we think we need to do. And, they've been really influential. They're very vocal. They hold me to account, and rightly so. That's their role. And I think it's just been wonderful to see that progression over time in terms of the growth of the resource groups and the power that they can have as well. And, from an ED&I leader perspective, I think, they're such a fantastic resource, and we couldn't do it without them.
Oh, fantastic. And so how do you measure the success of these initiatives and programs that you do put in place?
Yeah, so we take sort of a few different approaches. And I'm a kind of firm believer in kind of delivering everything in a bit of a programmatic way. So drives my team mad, but I love a plan. I love a tracker and some milestones, and actually really taking a bit of a sort of project management approach in terms of, we deliver one thing before we can move on to the next, and obviously some agility in that as well. It's not always, it doesn't always naturally flow in that world. We're realistic as well, and we're operating in a very complex, challenging, fast-paced business. But I think doing it in that way helps us to be able to stop and celebrate those successes along the way and say, right, we've delivered this, and kind of measuring that. We measure engagement around inclusion as well. So we have our engagement survey, we have an inclusion section within that, and we measure how people are feeling about, the question is, how inclusive do you believe that Heathrow is, and do you agree or strongly disagree with the statement? And we've seen an 8% increase in that over the last 12 months. And I think that's come through the work that we're doing. I think really shifting some of that culture, really improving our policies and going back to the basics on some of our things. And, we've introduced a menopause guidance package, we've introduced transition at work guidance. And I think all of those things is creating that culture that I talked about in terms of, it's not just about bringing the diverse people in, it's about creating the right environment when they're here. So we measure it through that. And then we also measure our demographic data as well, as I'm sure a lot of us do. So looking at our kind of how our makeup as an organization, but we're almost trying to kind of, and we have set some targets publicly. We've kind of gone out there a couple of years ago and set some public targets around our senior leadership, which, we're working towards and we're making really good progress on. But for me, I think, it's really about culture bit underneath as well. It shouldn't just be about the representation. It has to be about we're creating the right culture at the same time. So I guess through those three sort of measures really around the engagement, the kind of demographic, and then that real kind of milestone approach and kind of programmatic approach, I think really helps us to understand where we are against what we're trying to achieve.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. And so what would you say is one thing that DEI leaders aren't talking enough about, but they really should?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I was sort of I've been pondering a few, and I think for me it's a little bit around sort of vulnerability, and it's our sort of own vulnerability. I think we look to other leaders and kind of they've been vulnerable enough, they've been brave enough, and I think what I mean by the vulnerability piece is almost we're so passionate about what we do. We're all in this because we want to make a difference. We all kind of are very clear in terms of why we do what we do. But it's a tough gig. It's a hard thing to do, and we're balancing a lot of the times big organizational agendas, colleague agendas, trying to find that right balance. Sometimes it takes a while to align those agendas. It's really emotive. You're dealing with people's emotions, people's characteristics, who people are and who they're passionate about it. So I think balancing all of that can sometimes really feel it's really tough. And a lot of the time on my drive home, I think, right, are we doing enough? Are we driving enough forward? Are we going quick enough? Are we moving some of these things forward enough? And I think it's been able to kind of be vulnerable enough to kind of stop and go, right, am I okay? Am I doing enough in this space? Do I feel okay? We are taking that time, and are we taking the right approach? So I think it's about really, that understanding of it's tough for us as leaders in this space, and are we looking after ourselves enough?
We're going to take a minute to thank our friends at Dandi, the DEI analytics company, for supporting the show. To drive real change today, DEI leaders need to be strategic. and they need to be data driven. That's why today's most successful DEI leaders use Dandi to measure and manage their DEI programs in real time, track key DEI metrics, and create reports at a push of a button. Are you ready to join the DEI measurement movement? Click the link in the description below to download your free essential guide to data-driven DEI transformation.
I think sometimes as D&I leaders, we're so focused on looking after everybody else and making sure everybody else is okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just sort of forget to go, right, actually, are we okay? How are we feeling with all of this? Because, sometimes it's a lot. But so I think I've learned that over the last sort of 18 months in doing this role, in terms of actually sort of, just really stopping and kind of having those moments where we're heading in the right direction, I'm okay, or I need to take that time to just stop and pause and think about it. So I think recognizing in ourselves that it's a real challenge, and how can we support each other. And one of the things that we've kind of really done as an organisation, where I guess we're in a really unique position at Heathrow, where we have a community that we call Team Heathrow. So we are only one very small part of the airport, so about 6,500 people that work for Heathrow Airport directly. However, there's probably about 75,000 people that work at the airport. So if you then take into retail, airlines, baggage handlers, etc., that's a fantastic community to be part of. And we're all here for one goal, to deliver the airport, make it happen, get passengers off on their journey safely. So actually being able to draw upon some of those organisations, what are they doing in this space? What are they kind of going after? And I've built a bit of an internal network. So I think, go and find a network, go and talk to other people, go and learn, share knowledge, cry on each other's shoulders,
Yeah.
But equally then use that power of that network to achieve what you want to achieve, because we've worked with some of our partners, some of our supply chain, and we've had some fantastic success stories in what we've been going after. So I think I recognize not every organization has that, but go and talk to others in your industry, go and talk to others in similar sectors, or just connect, and find others in this industry in terms of DEI, and find out more from each other and learn. I think soak it all up and take it all in, and because we're all in this together.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'm so glad that you touched upon the topic of kind of having partners and building an internal network, because a lot of especially like the larger organizations, yes, you've got your own direct employees, but you will have your outside customers, your other businesses that you partner with for various different reasons in order for your business to operate in the way that it does. So I'd love to hear a little bit more from you on building that kind of relationship and introducing your own goals for Heathrow as your goals for kind of creating a diverse, inclusive environment, but also kind of branching out to those partners. How was that experience? Was it easily receptive to everybody? Did you face any challenges when you kind of started those conversations?
Yeah, so there was some challenges, and I think we started doing it about probably about 12 months ago, 18 months ago, and we were obviously in the whole kind of labour market. I mean, we're still in the labour market challenge, aren't we? We're not over it yet, and so it was almost a little bit of like, oh, are we kind of stepping on toes, because we're all sort of trying to recruit, we're all trying to get the airport back up and running after COVID, and everybody was kind of having those same challenges. But equally, then surely there's some power in what we can achieve, and we have opportunities through if people maybe didn't make certain criteria for some of our roles, could they go and we have some strict criteria for some of our roles, but that doesn't mean to say that their skill set doesn't transfer to a retail offering, or a food and beverage offering, or something like that. So was there power in that, and actually through that real opportunity, and recognizing that, as opposed to, oh no, we're having those candidates, you're not having them, kind of thing. And really recognizing it in that sense. And one of the things I wanted to do was almost just bring everybody together, and just understand what we were all doing, first of all, and just kind of what people were after and where everybody was on this journey. And so last September, we used National Inclusion Week as an opportunity to do that. We brought lots of the organizations. I mean, there is probably about 300, 400 organizations that make Heathrow run. We didn't have all of them, but we had a good chunk of them. And and I guess what we spent the morning doing, we had about 4 hours together, and we heard from a range of organizations, like from American Airlines to some of our consultancy firms and things like that, just in what they're doing. And I guess what that then gave us was that ability to go, right, well, we're going after similar things, so let's learn, let's kind of take and share from each other. But equally, we almost recognise that actually that's their industry thing, and we don't necessarily need to go for that. Somebody like a big airline who is global might be going after very different things and have a slightly different agenda. So it was understanding and recognizing each other's agendas. Where could there be opportunities to go after that? And I think because we were all in the room together, we all kind of heard from each other. It was really inspiring. I guess what it then did is kind of raise that passion, because everybody in the room is passionate about this agenda, and we all want to make a difference. So I think starting at that level was the successful way to do it. And we're hoping to do another one this year. And I guess then it's just building on that now, and then pulling on those networks to say, oh, we're trying this, and how did you manage that maybe, and just kind of really learning from each other. But I guess obviously always with that level of, we protect some of our own stuff as well, because, we have to by the nature of it. But I think when it comes to something like inclusivity and diversity, I think, there's a real power that we can kind of share and learn and pull in on each other. And I think that's what I found really helped. And I was, more than happy to share our strategy and what we were doing. We'd established that probably about a year or so before. And equally, there were organizations that were way ahead. And so it was like, right, great, let's go and talk to them. What are they doing? Like, how have they got so far ahead?
Mm-hmm.
But equally, then there were some organizations coming to us going, we don't know where to start. Like, we've literally no idea what we're doing in the, and can you help? And can you help us kind of create some stuff? And so for me, that was just a fantastic opportunity to impart some knowledge, but equally go and soak up loads of other knowledge as well. And I think, it was just a fantastic opportunity, and really, again, kind of driving the power of networks, I think.
Oh, that literally, I'm so pleased. Like that's, no, because honestly, Heathrow is a huge organisation. As you said, you've got a massive amount of partners, and a massive amount of stakeholders, and it's great to hear that you understand the value in not hoarding hoarding this. Because it isn't, like, creating diverse and inclusive environments for people at an organisation is not a task that should be only one person or just solely kind of an internal situation that you're dealing with. Do you know? Like, so it's the key to success, I believe, is actually reaching out and sharing, and being transparent about, this is where we are in our journey. This is what we've implemented so far. Here's what we've learned from doing it. Mm-hmm. Where are you guys at? What have you got to offer? How can we help you? I think it's just a key element of any sort of relationship. I think is there needs to be a give and take. So you can't always take. It's like a conversation that I had with a leader a couple of months back, is literally about any sort of relationship. For any sort of successful relationship, there needs to be a give and take. You kind of can't always constantly like take. I need this, I need that. You need to be able to offer something back in order for anything to really flourish and to succeed and advance. And also for I can't get my words out, for a sustainability perspective as well. Like, if you really want to make sure that all of this great work that you're putting in actually sticks and is going to be successful, you kind of need to be unafraid to fail and be open to sharing where you are, right? So no, I'm so pleased for this. I'm so much enjoying this conversation, Adam.
Yeah, me too. It's great.
This is great.
And I just say there, I loved your point around the kind of preparing to fail and kind of recognizing that we're not always going to get this right. And I think we're all on such a learning curve, and the whole kind of industry or the kind of sector around diversity inclusion has changed so much in the last few years, and all for the right reasons. But it's moving at that pace, and we're all trying to keep up, and we're all trying to take it all in and build the right things. And sometimes we don't quite get it right, and it's being able to kind of just go, okay, we didn't quite get that right, we'll learn from it, we'll take it forward, we'll move on. And I think getting everybody to kind of recognize that, and it's conversation we have a lot with our networks, is really kind of our resource groups in terms of making sure that, we're all fighting for the same things, we're all kind of powering for the same things, and we're all kind of wanting to really make that difference. And and it's in those moments where sometimes in those discussions it does get a bit heated, because of course it's going to do, because we've all got our interests, but ultimately, and that's the moment I sort of will stop and pause and say, right, everybody, passion's in the room, we can feel it, but it's about bringing it back to that one objective and that one goal that we're going for. And learning from each other, as we've talked about. It's just so powerful.
Definitely. I think actually that leads me on to my next question that I had for you, was in terms of kind of what do you do when you've got that pushback, when you're having to have those difficult conversations, or those conversations that you're really passionate about, and you're getting some negative comments, and it's not quite going in the direction that you're wanting it to go in. How do you deal with that?
So I think for me, there is real power in data. So I love data. And I think, I think the one thing that I set out when I started in this role was, right, what data can I get my hands on? What are we saying? What are we kind of, where are we as an organization? And so then when you do get that pushback, if you've got the ability to have the data to kind of help your conversation, to say, well, actually, that's not what colleagues are saying, or, that's not what the data is telling us, because, majority of the time the data isn't lying. So I think, it's about really building that data, really helping to use that data to tell a story, because, we can all have a lovely spreadsheet, but if that, it's got to tell the story, it's got to be able to kind of tell the insight. And I think for me, that's been a real success, is being able to kind of pull on that data. But equally, I think, sometimes it's just starting the conversation and kind of asking the why. Well, why do you feel like that? Why are you negative? What do you understand about it? And, I think we've had some really interesting conversations around, quite big topics, and, privilege and things like that. And, people sort of recognizing, oh, privilege is negative. I'm a white man, and so actually I'm just, I'm seen as the bad guy because I've got this privilege. And I'm like, well, no, it's not necessarily about that. And let's explore that. And how do you feel? And really just helping them dig a bit deeper into some of that, and using then some of the tools and some of the educational pieces to, and getting them to understand it a bit different. So I think, don't be afraid to start the conversation, and just ask the why questions, and keep asking the why questions, and pull in your experts as well. So use your networks, bring them into that conversation if there's something specific that they aren't quite getting, or we've had lots of conversations recently about transitioning at work and trans issues, and obviously everything going on in the press and around the world at the moment with it as well. And I think we've had to face into some conversations, and we've got a real challenge at the airport, because we have, quite gender binary roles in terms of male, female security officers, and how do we sort of play into some of that? And it's about, using our expertise, bringing some experts in as well. And don't be afraid to go, when we developed our transition at work guidance, we very conscious that actually nobody around the table was trans. So we were from the LGBTQ plus community, but none of us were trans. So we were like, right, okay, we can create this policy and I'm sure it'll be great. However, we're not hearing from people who have been through that experience. Where's that lived experience? And so went out to connect with colleagues, but equally we went and spoke to some charities, and we connected with some brilliant trans charities, and sort of spoke to them about, what is it that should be in this guidance, what is doing that. So I think data is super critical, but has to tell the story. Can't just be a really great spreadsheet. We all love a spreadsheet.
I love a spreadsheet.
Yeah, me too. Don't be afraid to start the conversation, and pull in your experts. Really bring them in, and bring that piece to life. I think is really important.
I'm honestly, Adam, and the thing is that we see it time and time again, where companies come out with new products or new policies, and there's at the first instance, first couple of sentences, first look, you're like, okay, great, fantastic. When you take a deeper look, they're like, actually, no, that this doesn't really help the demographic in which you're actually trying to aim this product at, or this policy at. Like, who was in the room when you thought of this? Like, do you know what I mean? And it's such a simple thing. Like, if you're creating a policy that is in order to cater and assist the transgender community, you would expect that you had somebody in the room from that community to help give you some guidance and a steer in the right direction. And if you don't, it's actually taking that extra step and reaching out to those people, which I'm so pleased to hear that is something that you guys have done. And it's a running thread that for anyone who is listening, or for any organization, if you're looking at putting in a policy, not just for the trans community, but for any particular demographic, or for any new thing that you feel that you're trying to cater to a particular group of people, then ensure that those people are in the room when you're creating it. Because that's when you know you're on the right path, right? So I think that's great to hear. Just before you do leave us, could you give one piece of parting advice that you would offer to any leader out there for tomorrow who are trying to advance their DEI initiatives in their organisation?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's about taking those moments to stop, celebrate, and share our successes. I think we can be so on the wheel of just moving things forward, making that difference, and doing such fantastic work in this space that sometimes we forget and to just go, right, okay, hang on a minute. We've delivered that piece of work now. We've got that initiative over the line. We've got that new policy over the line. Let's shout about it. Let's talk about it. So much. And I think this is a HR thing generally as well. I think, sometimes we just do things under the radar and we go, right, that new policy's there now. But we don't, I think shout about it and take that moment to stop and celebrate the work you're doing, because it will make a difference, and it is making a difference. And I think really just share that success. And I think it's something that we all have to check ourselves in on. Sometimes we go, right, hang on a minute, we didn't celebrate that, we didn't stop and shout about it. And so I think for me that keep doing what we're doing, but just take those moments every now and again to go, right, wow, reflect on what you have delivered, because you will have delivered so much, and you just kind of go, wow, that's the real difference that we're making. So yeah, I think that real kind of ability to just stop and reflect and really kind of celebrate and share the successes is so important, because majority of the time people don't even know the work you're doing, or or sometimes even the team people don't even know the team exists. So yeah, we've got to shout about what we're doing.
Oh no, 100%. Well, thanks again so much, Adam, for speaking to me. And so for anyone who is listening, if they want to connect with you, how can they best do that?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. So Adam Sunderland, I am on LinkedIn. You'll find me there. So yeah, please do reach out. And yeah, just thank you to you, Natasha, for the opportunity. It's been a great conversation. And as I could continue for hours.
No, totally. So I will be linking down below your profile. So for anyone's listening, if they want to connect with you, they can definitely do that through LinkedIn. And once again, Adam, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing all the more great work from you and Heathrow.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks again.